Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dive into Julie Bogart's Raising Critical Thinkers, and it's all about a really fascinating challenge. How do we move past just being right and actually learn the art of thinking wisely?
So here's our game plan. We're going to break down how our understanding gets shaped, figure out how to see past our own biases, and, build a more flexible, insightful mind along the way.
All right, let's just jump right in with a line that, wow, sounds pretty shocking today, right? It's from the classic movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And believe it or not, it perfectly sets the stage for our first big idea.
Now that wild movie line, it actually mirrors a real-life family mystery from the book. Imagine this. A grandfather writes this beautiful, heartfelt letter to his wife talking about the moment he first made love to her. But what he meant and what his family heard, well, they were worlds apart.
And that story right there gets to the absolute heart of our first section. The context around the words we hear and read, it doesn't just add a little flavor, it can completely change the entire meaning of the message.
You see, the grandfather was just using the language of his youth. Back then, making love meant sweet-talking someone, courting them, being romantic. But his family, reading it decades later, they heard this shocking confession. It's the same words, but a different time, leading to a totally different meaning. It just goes to show you, context really is everything. So that whole idea of shifting context, it leads to an even bigger question. If the meaning of words can change that easily, what about the invisible filters we all have inside our own heads? Because we all have this little internal storyteller, whispering in our ear, shaping what we believe is true.
And this is where it gets really interesting. We're often trained, especially in school, to hunt for the one single right answer. But real critical thinking, it's not about having all the answers. It's about having the curiosity to ask the right questions.
And to start asking those better questions, the book gives us this incredibly simple, but honestly powerful tool. Anytime you hear a fact, a claim, a statistic, just ask yourself, says who? It's a tiny question that forces you to look for the storyteller behind the story.
Because, and let's be real here, we are all wired with this. Our brains literally give us a little jolt of pleasure when we find information that confirms what we already think. Confirmation bias feels good, but man, it can make us totally blind to anything that challenges our point of view.
Okay, so if we're all just walking around with these built-in biases, what are we supposed to do about it? Well, luckily, the book provides this wonderfully clear three-step framework to help us get from bias to genuine insight.
And what I love about this is how it reframes the whole idea of critical thinking. It's not an attack on other people's ideas, it's an internal journey. You start by looking inside, noticing your own gut reactions. Then, you move out into the world through actual experience. And finally, you expand your ability to empathize by really truly trying on another point of view for size. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, right? So let's put this framework to the test with a simple, brilliant example that I guarantee we all know. We all know the story of the big bad wolf, the villain. But what happens when we let a different storyteller take the mic? In this version, the wolf is just a polite guy with a really bad cold, and all he wants to do is bake a cake for his dear old granny.
All that huffing and puffing? Turns out it was just a series of gigantic, unfortunate sneezes. And eating the pigs? Well, he's a practical wolf. You can't let good ham go to waste, can you? Suddenly, his actions, they seem almost logical.
And just like that, by simply hearing the story from the wolf's perspective, our whole certainty about who the good guys and bad guys just completely falls apart. It forces us to question the version of the story we just automatically accepted as the absolute truth.
This simple little story leads us right to the final and maybe the most profound idea in the entire book. What's the real point of all this critical thinking stuff anyway?
And here's the answer. The goal isn't to be certain, to win every argument, or to prove you're right. It's about developing a deep, ongoing, and humble relationship with a subject, getting to know it so well that you're open enough to let that new knowledge actually change you. And the superpower that lets you do this is what the book calls rhetoric imagination. It's this amazing ability to just temporarily put your own beliefs on a shelf and genuinely try on another perspective. It's like rooting for the other team for a little while, just to see what the game looks like from their side of the field.
Because in the end, this is the real proof, isn't it?
The true evidence that you're a critical thinker isn't how fiercely you can defend your current beliefs, but whether you have the intellectual courage to actually change your mind when presented with new information and perspectives.
And that's the challenge the book leaves all of us with. It's more than a question, it's a call to action. A call not just to think, but to have the profound courage to think again.